ett av de länder som är, vad kan man säga, föregångsländer när det gäller just social innovation, det är Storbritannien. I många år så har de jobbat med entreprenörskap och social innovation, och därför är det ju lite extra spännande att blicka just dit. Och nu kommer vi få ha 3 personer som kommer just från Storbritannien, så det gäller att vässa våra engelska öron lite. Och först ut så ska vi prata om framtiden. Vi ska spana in i kristallkulan. För hur kommer de sociala innovationerna, det sociala entreprenörskapet, att se ut om en 10 år? Och vilka utmaningar är det som det sociala entreprenörskapet och innovationerna står inför? Louise Pulford, hon är chef för Social Innovation Exchange, som är ett av de stora nätverken i världen. Och hon är med oss här idag och hon ska prata om detta. Välkommen upp. Welcome up, Louise.
Hope this is simple to work. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. I love coming to Malmö. Mainly because of the wonderful colleagues that I have in Erica and her team here, but also because I can look a bit Swedish. I do a lot of work in Latin America and Asia, and I always look completely different to everybody else. I'm always the blonde girl. And so it's really nice to be here. But despite looking a bit Swedish, I understand the word tack and hej. And usually when one does a presentation, you would comment on what has happened in the last presentation. You would comment on what is said before, and you would very quickly change your slides to make sure that you don't contradict them too much. I don't speak Swedish, and so I can't do that. So I could gather a little bit of what you were saying just now. I'd love to learn more in the break. And I hope that what I say is not too contradictory to what you said, and I'm pretty sure it won't be, because us in the social innovation world tend not to ever disagree with each other. Don't know how many social innovation conferences you've been to. I've been to a lot, and everyone agrees with everyone, which is great. But clearly, we need to do a bit more, because if social innovation is as effective as we need it to be, we should not be facing the challenges with such a mess in our approach, in the way that we're approaching our challenges today. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about social innovation in the next 10 years. I'm certainly not going to say what it looks like, but what I am going to do is ask some potentially controversial questions, because I really think we need to push ourselves. I really think we're not doing enough. And I really think we need to ask ourselves some very hard questions about what we can do more and which institutions we need to push to do more, but also what we need to do more within ourselves. So, I run an organization called the Social Innovation Exchange. We're all 6. We're a global network of organizations around the world who are working in this field across sectors, across themes. And I guess the reason that they've asked me to speak in the Metod section is we're obsessed with the question how. How does innovation happen? How do people do more of it? How do we encourage more of it? And we all know, we've probably all seen this slide hundreds of times before, or a version of it. We all know that in the last few years, last 10 years, social innovation has become more accepted as a practice. That fields of traditional innovation have started thinking in a more social way. They've been thinking more about society. We all know that innovation parks that have existed for years are now being called, and we have a new version of social innovation parks. We have social innovation camps, we have funds, we have government offices, we have prizes, we have social impact bonds, we have social finance tools. We all know all of this stuff, and it's great. And we know also, this is a recent report by the Economist Intelligence Unit a couple of weeks ago, where they developed what they call a social innovation index, ranking different organizations against what they call their social innovation capacity. So they have 5 measures of institutional frameworks, finance availability, capacity, entrepreneurial capacity in people that Alistair will talk about. And they've ranked around 50 countries, I think, according to their innovation capacity, which is great. But they haven't in any way tried to measure the effect of this innovation capacity on the people's lives in their societies. And we also know that there's a lot more, and Beatrice will talk about this probably a little bit in terms of government innovation. There are lots and lots of work centres now all over the UK and all over the world that are looking at better evidence to try and prove what we're doing is better, and try and prove what we're doing can be more effective, or try and understand how our work can be more effective. But still, we have things like the migrant crisis that come and hit us, and none of us know what to do with it. And we spend far too long having different kind of discussions rather than thinking effectively about how to solve some of these challenges. And we know it's global, and so this is some of the work that we do. We host events all over the world talking about lots of these different issues, whether it's on a cities level, or a couple of weeks ago we were in Colombia talking about the social innovation in divided societies, Colombia being a particularly divided society at the moment, following its referendum. But as I said, compared to the scale of these challenges that we're facing today, and that we're about to face, these efforts are still fairly marginal. And this is a slide again, which you've probably all seen before, a well-known writer and thinker on this topic put this slide in a presentation, Charlie Leadbeater from the UK, in probably about like 1985 or something, that explained why we need innovation. But still, even though we know what we've got isn't good enough, I don't think we're really focusing enough on how what we need is changing and how quickly the pace of change is. So we have some of the deep social challenges that we need to face today, like the migrant crisis, like aging, like young people, like divided societies all over the world. But we also have some serious challenges arising very, very quickly. And so what we need has changed, and what's possible is extremely different to what it was 5 years ago, but also last year, and probably last week. So digital disruption has been a big thing. The world's largest taxi company owns no taxis. The world's largest hotel chain does not own a single room. This goes on. And I was really lucky last week to be in Seoul in South Korea, not looking very Korean, with the mayor of Seoul, who many of you will know as a leader in this field. He has been a human rights activist. He has been a social organizer. He ran an organization called the Hope Institute in Seoul, which focused on community level, bottom-up initiatives. And then he became the mayor of Seoul, a city of 12 million people with its fair share of social challenges to face. And what he was hosting last week was something called the Future Innovation Forum. And he talks about something called he calls the fourth industrial revolution. And his challenge to the global participants that were there, but also the people of Seoul, was how do we cope with the fourth industrial revolution? What is it? And so what we did is we spent some time around Seoul looking at different projects and looking at different things that are happening in the city. And we identified some of the characteristics in Seoul of this fourth industrial revolution. We looked at things like distributed systems. We looked at things like rebuilding chains of production. There is whole areas of Seoul where their garment industry is not made in a big factory. It's one person in each building that has a different role in making the garments. It's distributed system. We looked at things like zero-mile production, consumption as a result of this, and moved to this local manufacturing and moved to doing things with our hands, this whole maker movement that we're seeing. And this fourth industrial revolution brought some really big questions for us. So we talked a lot about what this means for our city centres. Shopping forever has been the main activity that people do in the cities. But when people are not shopping in the cities anymore and they're shopping online, what does that mean for our city centres? The jobs that we have in the future are going to change. People are not going to be working in the office blocks, and pretty soon this will happen. So what does that mean for our city centres? How do we repurpose the buildings? How do we redesign what we have already? But also there's a whole question around ethics and technology. Who manages our data when everything is done online? What do we do about drones? What do we do about blockchain? Those things that I really still don't quite understand. What kind of skills are we going to need? What are our young people going to need to do? How do we still nurture things like creativity? There was a presentation that I saw last week where actually making some predictions about jobs in the future, and the jobs that aren't going to be lost so easily are those creative ones. So how do we still nurture things like creativity when there's such a focus on the Internet of Things and data and all of those things? And how do we deal with the shadow side of all of this? Social innovation isn't necessarily always good. Finding new ways of doing things doesn't always have the best effect on people and society. So how do we make sure that this move to the future has a positive effect on people's lives and doesn't just damage them? And I think what we really need to do at this point is think about how we change systems. And so the presentation, if I understood it at all, that I saw earlier on, was thinking a little bit about that, right? How do you not just, or maybe not, but anyway, how do we stop all of these, how do we make sure that social innovation is more than the sum of its parts? How do we not stop all of these brilliant tiny innovations that are happening, but how do we make the most of them? How do we use them to make governments, to make big institutions reframe their thinking? So the question is not about tiny communities only, it's about how governments can change their approach so we don't need all of these tiny initiatives.
Okay, Louise.
And so I'm going to stop there, but I am going to stop there. But these are some of the things I think we need going forward. And I hope that we'll have some of this discussion later on the role of different institutions in doing it.
Yes, we will keep on talking to Louise in a while. And thank you so much for now. And give them a call. Louise, please have a seat here. Yes, please.